This is the BattlerGC Pro, the latest in Retrofighters series of new controllers for old systems, and it promises to be the ultimate GameCube controller, with Hall effect sticks, an improved D-pad, better ergonomics, and clicky triggers. But is it any good? Well, yeah, and let's get into it.
Before anything else, I've got to say this is kind of a scattershot controller. It's got more of a Switch Pro controller shape with a GameCube layout. The overall shape is more in line with modern standards, but with analog sticks shaped in the GameCube style, an oversized A button and those kidney bean shaped X and Y buttons. On top there's two shoulder buttons, triggers that end in a mouse click switch, and on the back there's a set of back paddles. The button feel is inconsistent. The D-pad and auxiliary buttons seem to be using tactile switches, the triggers end in that mouse click, and the face buttons use standard soft membrane pads. This leads to a lot of variation in button pressure, feel, and sound, and gives the impression that they were kind of working with what was available, rather than having a strong vision for it. In practice, it doesn't matter that much when you're playing games. These minor differences never seem to stand out to me, and I was able to enjoy the novelty of returning to the layout with a surprising number of games. The first stop, of course, was platform fighters, with Smash Ultimate and Rivals of Aether 2. The BattlerGC Pro did an admirable job here, with no snapback issues during play and consistent angles and feedback. Worth noting here is that Rivals 2 uses more buttons than Smash, which led to some confusion when trying to perform strong attacks and recover, with the raised profiles of the X and Y buttons making me slightly slower at homing in on their positions. This could also just be me fighting decades of muscle memory, associating this layout with Melee's control scheme. Super Monkey Ball was my next test for analog precision, and it performed well there, with just enough tension to pull off precise movements without getting in the way of quick directional changes. Pac-Man Championship Edition DX and PN3 were my testing grounds for the D-pad. In Pac-Man, it was passable. It's a huge improvement over the Xbox 360's D-pad, the console it originally released for, but at high speeds I found something about the size and shape of the pad caused me to slightly lose orientation once in a while and miss a turn. You can adjust to it, but it wouldn't be my first choice. PN3 is one of the few GameCube titles that makes heavy use of the D-pad, requiring you to perform simple motions for special moves. Specials give invulnerability and are a key part of the game, so performing them on the original GameCube pad was a nightmare. With its small, mushy D-pad, you'd often get misinputs and get killed. Imperfect, but the BattlerGC Pro's D-pad is definitely an improvement on that front, and can imagine will make a bunch of 2D games much more playable. PN3 did draw attention to the relatively slow response of the membrane face buttons. Again, this is in line with the original GameCube controller, and for normal play, they feel great. But for arcade-style games that require mashing, there's a pronounced extra force needed to get fast inputs, causing me to switch to a claw grip during some intense moments. It's notable only because the BattlerGC Pro does have two mouse-click micro-switches at the end of its triggers, which surprisingly I don't like. You can hit these pretty fast, but having a fast response switch at the end of the long analog trigger travel is kind of odd, especially without the trigger stops that many third-party controllers have as standard these days. I'd like to either have seen trigger stops for that instant feedback, or quieter tactile button as you see on the rest of the controller here instead. Despite all my nitpicks, I kept finding myself absorbed in games as I was testing this controller, with none of the small issues being a real distraction during play. From older titles to modern ones, I kept finding myself enjoying my time with the BattlerGC Pro, with it even being a surprisingly good fit for genres I didn't think it would be, like first-person shooters. If you're looking for a competition-level, endgame controller to win a Smash tournament or climb a speedrun leaderboard, this isn't it. For a modern option, with many quality-of-life features over the original GameCube controller, this is a strong contender.